So this is growth and development of the adolescent. So adolescence is a time of rapid physical growth, and the body changes in proportion. The only other time their body is growing and changing this fast is during infancy. So the secondary sexual characteristics appear, and they become reproductively mature, able to reproduce. Puberty usually begins about 9 or 10 in girls and 10 to 11 in boys. So some of the physiologic changes that happen are because of hormones, right? So there's the secretion of estrogen in girls and testosterone in boys. That's what stimulates those secondary sexual characteristics. Physical development, hormone changes, sexual maturation all occur. The peak velocity for growth, so right, how fast they grow, this occurs around 12 in girls and about 14 in boys. That's that time where you buy them pants and 2 months later the pants don't fit. So they have that just tremendous growth spurt. Muscle mass increases in boys while fat increases in girls. Some of the other physical changes, the voice deepens, particularly in boys. It's more noticeable in boys, and they often get their voice cracking. Limbs elongate, and some kids will look really leggy, right? They kind of shoot up, their legs and arms stretch out first before the rest of them. The growth plates, those epiphyseal growth plates, fuse and close, so there's no more growth at the end of adolescence. The apocrine glands, these are sweat glands, they become active in the axilla and the genital area, so they start having body odor. That body odor usually starts before their hygiene gets good, so that can be an issue of early in the teen years. The skin changes because the sebaceous glands become active, and that's what leads to acne. Increased body hair, hips widen in girls, shoulders widen in males. So some of the other organs, the way they mature, neurologic system, it's still increasing that myelination, so the processing, sending nerve impulses becomes faster. Their cognitive growth is increasing. Respiratory system, through adolescence, everything is increasing in size, in volume, and vital capacity. Cardiovascular, the size and strength of the heart increases. Their systolic blood pressure continues to increase, and pulse rate decrease slightly through these years. GI system, all their permanent teeth are finally in, except for those wisdom teeth. Liver, spleen, kidneys, digestive tract, all continue to grow as they are growing, but are essentially mature and functioning at adult levels. Musculoskeletal, the linear growth continues up until late adolescence, when those growth plates fuse, and then there is no more growth. They've reached their adult height. This happens a bit earlier in girls than it does in boys. Integumentary system, skin is thick and tough, right? You don't get those little skin tears that elderly people get. Sebaceous glands are active. That's that cause of acne. And the sweat glands are active equal to adult levels. Our theorists for adults, Erickson says this is identity versus role confusion, or role diffusion. So they're figuring out who they are, that identity. Who am I? What am I going to be about? What's my life going to mean? What's important in my life? So they're doing those kind of cognitive things as they're adjusting to their bodies and getting used to those changes their bodies are going through. Peers become very important during these years, and being accepted by their peers is of primary importance to them. A lot of kids in this age will try out different roles. I'm a cowboy this week, or, Western. Now, next week, I'm going to hate Western and try being a rocker. So that's common for them to try out different roles. Piaget calls this formal operations, and this is where they're finally learning to think abstractly. A 13-year-old, not so much, but as they progress through adolescence here, they're developing a better and better ability to think abstractly. This allows them to do things like envision the future. It's not just the little kid, when I grow up, I want to be. They start thinking, okay, I'm going to take some science classes now. I'm going to take them seriously. I'm going to apply myself. I'm going to apply to the nursing program because in the future, I want to be a nurse and care for people. And, so they can not only just say something, but they can make the plan to get there. One of our issues with teens is this feeling of invincibility. They really believe it may happen to everybody else, but it won't happen to me. And that can be one of the problems with them doing risk-taking behaviors. They now can see some of those gray areas. They can see a problem from different points of view. I see it this way, you see it that way. For them, they focused on this other part of it, and they can look at something from all those different viewpoints, can start to see multifaceted issues, which allows them to do things like care about society, politics, environment. They can balance those things of, I may believe in personal freedom, but my freedom shouldn't allow me to drive 120 on the freeway and endanger everybody else. So they do start to understand those give and takes, that there's, just because I say I'm free doesn't mean I can use my freedom to injure others. And that leads right into the moral and spiritual development, which for our moral development, they call it the post-conventional level. So teens really are developing their own set of values. What am I going to live by? Is it important for me, to pursue education? Is it important for me to live close to my family and help care for my aging grandparents? What are going to be the key values in their life? And they kind of internalize a moral code, which may be their parents' moral code and may have some differences to it. And as far as religion, they now understand the difference between just the practices that they did, the crossing themselves, or the having, an icon on their bedside, and what they actually believe, that those things are just symbols. They're not the actual beliefs that they have. And all of these, they're developing their own, which may or may not be what their parents have, and can bring a lot of conflict. So as I said, the peer group is important. Muscle, gross motor, fine motor wise, they're doing lots of activities. They're now usually in competitive sports and really have tremendous muscle control and balance and everything else. So gross motor, their skills increase, their endurance is better than mine for sure, better than can be better than at other times in their life, but it's very good. They usually have one sport that really interests them, or one item activity that they really focus on. Fine motor, we see really good fine motor in teens now because of computers. They've used their fingers, their manual dexterity is great. Eye-hand coordination, things like seeing the ball come and swinging the bat. They've had enough practice that they're really good at these things now. So emotional and social development. This is a time, right? Erickson said they're learning who they are, figuring out who they are. So they're really increasing in independence. And this can be a big stress for the family. It's hard for the parents to let go. They're continuing to develop a self-concept, which is very closely tied with their body image, how they feel about their body. Peer influence is strong. This can be both a good and a bad thing. They become interested in sexuality and dating and finding a romantic partner. And often their family of origin, their cultural influence, and their peer pressure may have quite a bit of conflict. And that's hard for both the child and the family. So when you're dealing with a teen, how can you communicate with them? Well, make sure you give sufficient time. Don't try and rush it. Be respectful. Treat them as an adult, even though they may not always act that way. Talk face to face and be careful of your body language. They are very perceptive of that, and pay attention to theirs too. Sometimes they're eye rolling, sometimes it's much more subtle. Ask open-ended questions. Get them talking. Don't just ask yes, no things. And then really clarify, do what you can to make sure you're understanding it. Things like reflecting back what you think you heard. That not only clarifies it, it also makes them feel like you care about what they said. Choose your words carefully so that you say what you mean. Be honest and, tell them what really is the concern or the problem or what you have to say. Be liberal with praise, even if they don't do a great job at whatever it is we're asking them to do. Acknowledge their effort. You really tried to follow your diabetic diet. What can we do to help you do better? So solicit their input in decision making whenever you can. Don't just tell them what they need to do. Have them participate in that, and set clear limits and expectations. They need to know what you are trying to do. So for safety, they're starting to drive, right? So motor vehicle safety, both the driver and the passenger. Let's see if we can still get them using seat belts. That feeling like they're invincible is a problem here. Bikes, they're now riding on the roads with traffic, right? So helmets, using arm signals for turning. We want them going with the traffic, the same direction. Bike lanes whenever possible. Skateboards and skates, use that safety equipment, especially if they're doing extreme stuff. Water safety, right? They're probably now, going rafting and things where you can get snagged in bushes and pulled under. So it's a different kind of water safety, but we still really don't want them swimming and in water alone. Sports, making sure that they're doing things safely. If they're lifting weights, they know how to do it right, that they're using the equipment and the training. Personal safety, don't go somewhere with a stranger. Know where you are and who you're with. Be careful with personal information online. Don't put your phone number and address out on lines. And then drugs and alcohol. They're going to be exposed to it. Have we given them resources to make good decisions? Factors that influence their diet. Their peers. Then their busy schedules. They may be worried about their weight, and fast food, the convenience of it. All those things can contribute to poor diet. So there is a food pyramid designed for teens because they have this rapid growth. They need good nutrition. And then they're interested in relationships. And so some of the concerns of unhealthy relationships, when there's an imbalance in power. So one of the partners has power over the other. We need to teach them about unsafe sexual activity and sexually transmitted diseases and unwanted pregnancies, and dating violence, so that they feel prepared to get out of a relationship like that if it's not a healthy relationship. Hygiene. Early teens need better hygiene. By the later teens, it's great. They bathe more than they need to. So we want to encourage bathing and deodorant, not overwashing the face, gently washing it 2, maybe 3 times a day, but not squeezing acne or scrubbing hard. Shampooing hair helps with acne as well. Piercings, tattoos, things like that. Use good hygiene on those. Sunscreen. We still would really like them wearing sunscreen and not using tanning beds, over tanning. It's not good for their skin, and it will make them look old. They will look older than they are in a number of years, but it's hard for them to care about 20, 30 years from now. Suicide. We want to work on suicide prevention, looking for mental health if we see declining school performance, if they come from a dysfunctional, abusive, substance-using family or they themselves are substance users, if they have difficulties with their sexual identity or suddenly start giving everything